Hello, my name is Kirsty and welcome to Upside Down Books. Today I'm going to be doing some more mini reviews for you guys, so I have 3 books to quickly discuss and tell you what my thoughts were of them. After these books I will actually be up to date with all my reviews on here for you guys, which is a bit exciting just because I've been reading a little bit slow at the moment, so I haven't made a whole heap of progress. But the good thing is that with these books I have actually been achieving my goal of finishing off some series, or at least making some progress for series during September, so that's good and I'm really pleased with that. But let's just get straight into it and have a look at these books I've got for you today. As always, this is going to be spoiler free until I tell you, and I will place a little symbol up here on the screen to tell you to mute your volume, and when that disappears again then you can put your volume back on. So no stress if you haven't read the book and you're trying to avoid spoilers. The first book I'm going to be talking about is If I Should Die by Amy Plum. This is the 3rd book in the Revenant series and I rated it a 5 out of 5 stars, and it made it onto my all-time favourite list, which is incredible. I've had an excellent month for books, like achieving that status of being like some of those best books out there, so I'm really pleased with that. This was just incredible. This was a strong finish to the series and just it did everything that I wanted it to do. It's got me even more excited to move on with Amy Plum's books. She's a fantastic author and definitely one of my favourites. If you don't know what the Revenant series is about, taking it back to book 1, it's about a young girl called Katie and her sister, and when her parents are killed in a car accident they basically move to Paris to live with their grandparents. When she's in Paris, she's sort of getting used to her new life, everything's a bit out of whack as it would be for her. She meets this guy called Vincent. So within this world there are people called Revenants, and Revenants are the undead, if you will. They're sort of more like angels than zombies though. A Revenant is someone who in their actual life died to save someone else. It's like a selfless death. And if they were predestined to become a Revenant, that event will trigger them to be reanimated a few days later and become a Revenant themselves. Now the Revenants then have, I've said Revenants too many times, they have this urge to save people. So say there's an accident that's about to happen, say a child falls into a lake and they're about to drown or something like that, then they have this compulsion to go and save them, even if it means that they are killed in the process, because being a Revenant means that they can no longer die unless, sort of like vampires where you have to like tear them to pieces and burn their body. So the idea is that they are the guardian angels of the human race and they're there to save you, and if they are killed in the process of saving you, in 3 days time they are reanimated and come back to life again. But that's basically the premise of this paranormal world that Katie finds herself involved in. Is it Katie or Kate? It's just Kate. I've been saying Katie, but it is just Kate. There's a beautiful romance that happens between Kate and Vincent, and the action and suspense and the what ifs of what's going to happen throughout the series are fantastic, so I really recommend it as a paranormal young adult novel for you to read. Now moving on to the spoiler section. I just love this. We are left on the biggest of biggest cliffhangers in the previous book, where Vincent's body has been destroyed and Kate is therefore almost destroyed herself with how upset she is. And honestly I wasn't sure how Plum was going to bring the story back from there, but the whole fact that the actual sort of ritual didn't go to plan as Violet had wanted it to, and Vincent's soul didn't become attached to her, etc, was really cool. And I loved that we spend like a decent amount of time, like a 1/3 of the book, trying to work out how they're going to save Vincent, another 1/3 of the book saving him, and then a 1/3 of the book in a battle. Like, it was just really well paced, so it's a really good fast-paced book. The reincarnation process was awesome. I loved that they went to New York to meet up with a guy there who has the instrument that they need to do it, and I had a very large heart attack when the reincarnation process totally didn't work the first time and I nearly accidentally got rid of Vincent. That was fine, I wasn't stressed. Oh, but backtracking to an event that happens just prior to that, when Vincent asks Jules if he can possess his body so that he can hold Kate because Vincent is violent, that was so wrong and I felt so bad about that. Not that I'm not criticising Plum's writing decisions, I'm criticising Vincent as a character for thinking that's okay. We all know that Jules has feelings for Kate, and the fact that it then turned into this hot steamy kiss, there's like 3 people kissing in 2 bodies, and then Jules is just totally mentally ruined after that. My poor heart was bleeding for him and I didn't blame him 1 cent for staying in New York. The final action scene that we have was incredible. The whole lead up to it with Kate going to save her grandparents and Violet being like, I'm gonna kill Vincent, and then stabbing Kate instead. My brain, I knew that was gonna happen. I totally guessed from like book 1 that Kate was going to be the champion that we were after, but the way that it actually happened was so shocking and violent. But I really liked it, and I liked the redeeming storyline of Luke, or Lucas, or whatever that boy's name is, where he comes back to the Revenant sides from the Numa. But that final battle scene was really cool, and I thought it was really sad that Jean-Baptiste was killed. So yes, overall a fantastic series that I highly recommend to everyone, and they have beautiful covers as well. The next book I have for you is actually one I finished an audiobook, but I have the physical book here for you, and that is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Look how big this book is. It's just, I forget how huge it is. This was incredible. It obviously was a reread for me. I read these throughout my childhood. It's actually the first time I've reread it, so I haven't read these books for a long time. I didn't remember almost all of the book. Almost all of the content in this book was new to me, except for what I'm familiar with the movies, because I watch those all the time, and it's making the rereading process of this series so enjoyable. I obviously rated this one a 5 out of 5 stars, and I put this one on my all-time favourite list. I'm not going to create a spoiler section for this. If you haven't read Harry Potter by now, then so I'm going to assume that we're all pretty okay with the events that happen in here. It was just amazing. This is such a well-paced book and goes so quickly through it considering how big it is. Again, I listened to this one in an audiobook with Stephen Fry narrating them. Incredible. Stephen Fry does such a ridiculously good job of the narration. As sort of a recap, because I haven't been doing a good job of actually writing reviews up for the previous books, I've always been of the opinion that I really like Snape's character, and I think he's ultimately a good person, but reading these books is no it's so complicated. He's portrayed far more horribly, I think, in the books than he is in the films. I think Alan Rickman, bless his soul, did an admirable job of portraying Snape's character, but I do think that at the end of the day, the depth in which we explore Snape's character and just the general everyday treatment that's sort of got edited out of the films, I suppose, he's just so horrible, he's just so mean, and I think J.K. Rowling is definitely right in saying that you can't make him a saint, but you can't make him a villain, because he's so grey. His character is as grey as it can get. One thing I did have to say about this book was Sirius's death. Far more sad in the film. I don't know if anyone else feels this way. I was a little distracted at the point of when it got to that when I was listening to it, but it just doesn't have the impact, I suppose, that the film does. But that being said, the film puts it in slow motion and silences it, and it's just Harry screaming with Lupin holding him back, and it's very, very emotional. Whereas this one, you literally go from Sirius being like, oh, is that the best you've got, Bellatrix, to dead. Like, that's it. There's like hardly any other banter in between there, and it's just the strange people out there who rate these negatively, talking about how angry Harry is and how horrible he is to his friends, but I feel like the point that a lot of people are missing, if you're maybe reading them for the first time as an adult rather than as a child and you haven't sat down and analysed them for your life, the point is in this book that Harry is bad-tempered and really struggling mentally with a lot of things because he's like half possessed and influenced by Voldemort all the time. You know, and if you think about what the effect of the locket is in the 7th book to Harry and Ron and even Hermione, it's horrendous, and Harry is a living Horcrux himself. Like, I can't even imagine how good of a person you would have to be as nice as Harry is, considering a small part of Voldemort literally is living inside of him the whole time. But yes, incredible. The Order of the Phoenix is so good, and I was so sad that it ended. I just wanted this to go on forever and ever and ever. And the final book that I have to review for you today is Bitterblue by Kristin Cashore. This was also an incredible finish to the series. As I said, I've been having such a good run of books lately. This one is part of the Graceling realm, so Graceling, Fire and Bitterblue, and whilst it was a little bit of a slow read trying to get into the world again, I really enjoyed it. There are some very mixed reviews out of there. The only thing with this series I found is when I got to Fire, the 2nd book, I was like, I don't really know where this fits into this series. It's very different and feels like it should be a separate series, but I was anticipating that this one would tie it together a bit better. So that's my only real complaint with this series, is chronologically it's very strange. I thought Bitterblue was a very relatable and nice character. She's dealing with a lot of things, trying to run a kingdom she knows nothing about, that's trying to cope with 30 years of mental abuse from King Lek. It was very clever. I don't know how Cashore has kept all these plot lines in her head, because literally every character in here is struggling with some sort of mental problem because of all like the interfering that Lek has done with their memory, their mind, their decision making components, everything. So when Bitterblue makes that decision to leave the castle at night time and go out on her own to try and find out what's happening, I was like, here we go. It took a little while to get to that. This is a book you should definitely pursue with, because when everything's sort of tied together and we find out a bit more about exactly where each of the characters are at with like their loyalties, it's like, oh, when you reach that point, when you get to about this point in the book and you actually find out what King Lek has done to some of his advisors, oh my god, it broke my heart and I forgave them. We are teamed up with Katza and Poe. They were revisited in this one, Poe more so than Katza, and new characters such as Teddy and Sapphire. Teddy and Sapphire are commoners, Sapphire is called Saf, he's a man. Alongside that she has her 4 advisors and like sort of a handmaid, I guess. Helen, I think her name's Helen, and the advisors aren't telling her the truth. She knows they're lying to them, but she also knows that they're very delicate in their mental state, so it's just like problem layered upon problem layered upon problem. So let's discuss some spoiler discussions. I loved Saf. I thought he was a really good character, and I loved the sort of pettiness of their fighting between Bitterblue and Saf himself. When he steals the crown, I wanted to kill him, as did everyone else in this book, but I was like, you know what? I would have done that too. I was sad that Katza was away on so many sort of like missions throughout the book. I really thought that a better plotline for another book rather than Fire would have been to explore Katza and Poe's little missions of assassinating kings and deposing them and all sorts of things like that. I really would have liked to have seen more of the action in that sense rather than Fire, who really doesn't have much bearing on the plot at all, except for giving us a solid backstory to King Lek. Katza and Poe were good. Poe was really good. Poe was treated really badly in this book, and I want to forgive Bitterblue for doing that. Poe is the type of person who will go to the nth degree to help someone out, but at the same time Bitterblue's absolute panic and struggle to try and get a grip on what exactly is happening in her kingdom made me want to excuse her for being so demanding on him, especially on someone who is your best friend and who is going to be obliging to everything you ask them to do. So it was a very fine line between Bitterblue sort of abusing him for what he could do for her and just maximum use of the resources at her fingertips. A character I really loved in this book was Death, the character whose name is spelled like death. That was hilarious. I thought he was a great character. I love grumpy characters and I wish we had more of them. I loved that he had a cat called Lovejoy. He was really cool, and I loved his excitement when Bitterblue and him start to decipher all the ciphers that are going on, which again I thought was another clever element that Cashore has added into this story. It's obviously, I don't know how you even go about creating this. There's so much effort gone into creating the different messages and the different ciphers that have been used by different characters. I thought that was very impressive. A particular favourite character of mine was Gideon. He was the saving grace for Bitterblue's character, and whilst I really liked Bitterblue and Saf together, I'm really hoping that something comes of Bitterblue and Gideon because they were a great little team together. A plot point that I thought was clever as well was Fox and Hava. Not that they're specifically related, but Hava was a really cool added plot element, especially because she kind of segued into the rape tendencies of Lek's character and opened that up into a more mature discussion of things that he made Theo do, and Rude, all of those, the things that they had to do that really broke my heart as soon as we sort of really get into what sort of traumatic experiences Lek has forced upon them. Fox's plotline, I never really trusted her. I thought she was very strange. I think that literally came because of the Hunger Games and the character that's called Fox in there, and she, you know, she wasn't a very truthful character. Yeah, I was surprised that she was grey. I didn't quite see that coming, so when she became more involved in the plotline in the evil sense of it, that was good. I liked that twist. Going back to the topic of Theo, that whole scene where Bitterblue follows him on top of the bridge and then he ends up jumping off and committing suicide was just... So many people had died at that point because they'd hit their threshold for what they could endure in their minds, and yeah, it was really sad. Yeah, obviously then like the next chapter, one of the other ones hangs himself in his cell, but there we go, whatever. Lots of things happen in this book. I think it's really clever, and I really recommend it. Graceling and Bitterblue are fantastic books. Fire is interesting just doesn't quite make a lot of sense. Okay, so those are all the books that I have for you today to do a review on. Hopefully I will pick up the reading pace, so I'll have another 3 books for you to review soon, maybe even 4, but I have had a really great start to my reading month, and just recently I've been reading some really great books, so I'm really pleased with that. These are all 5-star reads for me, which is incredible, and I hope that if you've read them, you enjoyed them as much as I have, or you might consider picking up one of these series soon. Other than that, I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!